like to now invite on my colleagues, Michael Mealing and Ben Smith, and I'd love to hear them say a few words about what I've just talked about, and kind of get their take on what they would like the Moon Society to be. Well, good morning, guys.
Good morning. I'll take a stab. So yeah, one of the things that I've been doing over the past several months is running several rooms on Clubhouse. And the unique thing about Clubhouse is it's like this, but anyone gets to join and we get to talk these things through. And sometimes these rooms go until late at night and we're discussing a lot of things about space in general. And what happens a lot is there's a significant discussion about motivations and a concern by people not in the industry that the industry isn't inclusive. And this comes from a perception outside that apparently across the industry that we don't seem to communicate very well, that the rest of the world still thinks that we're stuck in the 1960s, where the only people that get to go are former Air Force military pilots, the steely-eyed missile men of the 1960s. And unless you fit that exact mold, not only you're not allowed, you're not even allowed to think that you're allowed. And so I come back to what you were saying about it's not just the society is inclusive, but the moon itself is inclusive. I mean, it says it in the beginnings of the Outer Space Treaty, that space is for everyone. And I think that's one of the interesting missions that I think not just the Moon Society, but every space organization should be saying as loudly as we can that no, the 1960s are gone. We're never doing any of that ever again. This going forward is every person on the planet, if you can figure out a way to pay for it or be involved or have something to offer or want to figure out how to have something to offer, come on in. This is not your grandfather's space program. And that's something that whenever I hear that on any forum, you've been seeing a lot of that on Twitter lately. Apparently space is only for billionaires. Nope. That is something that is a challenge for our industry, not least of which is a branding problem for what we're trying to do. But also we need all those people in the industry. Across the board, every single company that's in this business trying to build the things that we're talking about, they're having real problems finding employees. There are not enough people in our sector to fill the jobs that we have to be able to build what we want to build, to build what our customers want us to build. And that goes to not just engineers, but lawyers, project managers, HR reps, just every single thing that a company needs, we all need people. So yeah, as a society, the Moon Society, and as I said kind of yesterday, a challenge to all of our organizations. There is beginning to be the case where if a space advocacy organization is not regularly doing some very structured revisiting of its mission and how it's going about doing that, you are going to be quickly left behind by the pace at which the industry is moving underneath you. And I think we've seen that really just in the past year. So I think what we're all doing right now within the society is really doing the same thing that a lot of people in the industry are doing right now. Is my assumptions that I had for where my career was going to go, where the industry was going to go, have really changed a lot just in the past really year and a half. At the beginning of the pandemic, it was a different world, and I think we all have to respond to it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, as you said yesterday as well, Michael, that the space community is just innovating quickly. Things are happening very fast, and I think we also need to pay that in mind as we discuss what we want the Moon Society to be, and we need to be very future focused, or else we're not gonna be relevant.
But I think one of the challenges that we have, and I've run across this a lot lately, is if we are successful, we have a large number of people coming into our organizations, into our companies, who don't have the collective or the history of where we've been, the discussions we've already had, and we all need to be a little patient with our new colleagues coming into the industry, because there's a lot of history that we all have in our collective minds that not everybody shares. So a little bit of patience is also good.
Ben, what do you think about all this?
Well, one of the things we talked about yesterday that got me excited was we talked about writing up a new position paper for the Moon Society on the why of going to the moon. And I think that could be really important. And James and I talked about it a little bit, but I like the idea of having lots of whys and having lots of people write each why. So we have a multitude of voices in a multitude of styles to show that we're not a monolithic organization, that we value diversity and inclusion, and that there's not a single why to go to the moon. Everybody who wants to go to the moon has their own particular why. It may be very similar, but are all a little bit different flavors. So I'm pretty interested in getting that started for the Moon Society, and then being able to, instead of just shove it out as here's our why, we can send it out in pieces. Well, here's one why, and then a little later we can send out another one. Here's another why, and then so we can keep the conversation going for a much longer time. Because a lot of times, these organizations, they put out a position paper or something, and people read it and they're like, oh, that's cool, and then it's forgotten. Right. So we can stay in the conversation longer, I think, that way.
Yeah, that was the great advice we got from Nami Goswami yesterday. She's always out there on mainstream media getting asked about why are we going back to the moon, and she asked us, being able to point to a position paper that the Moon Society puts out telling the why very well would be a very useful tool for her, and also we could be sort of the authority in that conversation. Mm-hmm. And I love that idea of having that be a diversity of voices answering it. We do have a position paper back that was written in 2004, but obviously things have changed since then, and we need to dust it off. And I think the approach that you mentioned, Ben, is a great idea, to just highlight that there's so many reasons why you should go back to the moon, and let us talk about that intelligently.
Right. And doing that, I think, will help the society as a whole define, okay, so what do we want the society to do to support these whys? How can we do that? Sorry, Michael, go on.
But I think that what Ben was just alluding to at the very beginning, and even James said it, I think it's really important for the public and those of us not in the society or any other space advocacy organization, is to make it very, very, very clear at the beginning, is these whys for going to the moon, we want all of them to occur. We want all of them to be satisfied. Even if they seem mutually exclusive to certain people, let's figure out how to make it so that everybody gets to go for whatever reason they want to go, and we represent every single one of them. And I think that's one of the things that gets lost in a lot of these conversations when, and apologies for anyone from the press on the call, a lot of times it's very difficult in the limited column space you have to represent that, all of those whys, and the perception that comes across is this is the only why that is being investigated, and people feel excluded. Or people feel that someone is going to beat them there and prevent them from being able to do what they want. And I think that's one of the things that, the first part of our name is Moon, but we're also a society. And as a society, we have multiple different interest groups within it, all wanting to do different things, unified by the fact that we're all wanting to do them on one big round gray ball. And I think that's the thing that going back to whether it, we call it exclusivity or diversity of purpose. That's one of the things that I think as an organization in that paper and everything we talk about is to be very, very clear that, it does not matter what your reason that you want to go to the moon is. The only thing we ask is that you be, you not tell someone else that they can't.
Yeah, good point.
That is the one unifying aspect of the Moon Society is everybody gets to go. Nobody gets to tell somebody else they can't.
What do you guys think is the role of chapters moving forward in the Moon Society? Or is that an outdated concept?
Actually, when you said, going back to your original position paper in 2004, I was like, man, that feels like 1,000 freaking years ago. If you asked me about, February of 2020 even feels like 1,000 years ago, or really one really long April. I think that chapters, having tried to run an NSS chapter in Georgia, it's getting a little difficult. One of the things that I've always been interested in the NSS does a little bit of this, and some of the others do, is chapters also focused around particular communities or projects or technical, groupings of people that have a similar focus. And whether you call them chapters or focus groups, that's something that I think a lot of the other organizations would do well to take a look at as well. But no, I think they're yes, especially coming out of the pandemic. I think people are going to treasure their face-to-face meetings when they can have them a little bit more than they have in the past. So, but I think the challenge all advocacy organizations have is we have a mixture of people who are professionals in the industry, and we have a fair number of people who are not. They're from the outside. They may not have technical backgrounds. So when you have a chapter, how do you give people the satisfaction of being involved in something rather than going to a meeting, sitting in a chair and listening to someone, slap their gums at them once a quarter? I think that's one of the challenges to creating cohesion and participation in a chapter. And I know all of our organizations struggle with that.
Yeah, I don't want to write off physical chapters completely yet. Michael's right. They're definitely more difficult to start and to sustain. I liked one of the things he touched on, though, is maybe we should start thinking about having virtual chapters for specific interests. Maybe not quite at the project level where the group is working on a particular project, but if people are really just interested in talking about lunar geology, we can think about having a chapter if enough people want to meet up. We've got the virtual chapter that we're starting, which is for everybody, all members. I've had a couple of people in other countries reach out to me and say they might be interested in starting their own virtual chapter, or at least a version of Mare Cognitum. So we could get chapters in different time zones, and that'd be great. And then maybe we just keep rolling with the virtual thing. I mean, we got the Zoom license, we can keep using that. We've already paid for it. Yeah, physical chapters are tough. I'm not sure if that's the way to go anymore.
It is hard. I've also run a chapter here in Seattle for the Mars Society, and it's very hard to get, obviously, even before COVID, in-person meetings going that are regular. You usually want to have sort of a core group of people, but it all really comes down to what projects you're going to work on together. I think the most successful space chapters are ones that are cohesive because they're working together on a project.
Yep.
And that kind of goes for organizations too. I mean, what do you guys think are some projects that we should be working on other than the Lunar Development Conference as an organization that you think are worthwhile.
Well, I think the virtual chapter we're starting up, I think that could be a good, gluing type function, get people involved, get them a sense of community. Like I said, I think maybe starting up other virtual events for specific topics could be another way to get people involved. It's hard to do a lot of physical projects when you're all doing it virtually. That's one good thing about a physical chapter. Everybody gets together and bends some metal. That is something that's hard to do virtually. So, I think we need to rethink a lot of our project as to what can people do remotely, and reimagine these projects.
Ben, I think that's and going to Manny Pimenta's comment to the panelists, active participation is key. People should feel like they have the opportunity to contribute. And I think that's where, and some of the other organizations that have done this, figured it out a little bit better than we have, is when, to your point of bending metal, not everybody can bend metal. Mm-hmm. And we have a fair number of people who, especially, younger people that, having a mechanical engineering degree, but we also have lawyers, we have people that are non-engineering oriented. So how do we create things that are not physical or engineering or science related, that require significant amounts of training for them to be able to participate? The default among most organizations is some type of political action. But there's also other things that you can do where it's almost like lobbying, but you're not lobbying a politician, you're lobbying the public. Public outreach to locally or even nationally or internationally. There's other things, and I think all of our organizations, NSS is a little bit better because of their phone trees and their actions they can get people to take. Both politically and non-politically, just responding to particular articles, supporting things, social media. That is something that our members and future members that may not feel comfortable going and talking to their House or Senate representative, or may not feel comfortable participating in a technically oriented project. Finding things that engage them and give them purpose and give them satisfaction that they are able to contribute. That's an interesting challenge. I think that's one of the places that we might have fallen down as an organization in the past.
Yep, I agree. I think you're absolutely right. And I think we have an opportunity with the whole virtual environment to maybe flip the script on that. There is absolutely no reason we can't rethink projects. Projects don't have to be specifically, we're going to build something, or like you mentioned, lawyers. People have a passion for law. Let's start up a virtual group for solving some legal problems for settling the moon. They're legion. People like cooking. Hey, we got to figure out how we're going to cook on the moon. So, we can start up interest groups that actually do some real good in moving the dial on this, but you don't have to be technical or have a degree for any of that. I mean, there's so many things that need to be figured out before we're actually going to live on the moon. And most of them just aren't sexy enough to get any real funding from government or businesses. Yeah. So we can actually help fill some of those gaps, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a lot of things that that we could do just in terms of virtual stuff. And I think our Slack is a great tool to facilitate that. Although I think it's not the final answer of how we should all collaborate. I definitely think that our culture as an organization right now is a lot of text-based discussion, which goes back to the beginning. I mean, we had the ASI MOO when the organization was founded, and that was the main way that people collaborated then. But having things like our annual meeting next month, I think is going to be a great, if we can do that as a Zoom call instead of a text chat, I'm definitely in favor of that. But also having other working sessions that are Zoom based, or using other tools. There's a lot of other video based collaboration tools out there too that we could use and have it be getting real work done in a virtual setting, I think is something we can really innovate on.
You are absolutely right, James. I mean, Slack is great for, I think Slack really works good for casual conversations, or if you're just keeping a dialogue going over time. But I think if you really want to get some work done, Zoom or a different platform is the way to go. Text is just way too slow and inefficient to get some real work done.
And one of the things that I've discovered over the years is there are people that find text conversations like that to be either tedious or hard to keep up with, especially when they're flowing fast, especially if you're not a fast typist.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of the conversations that we've had on Clubhouse, whether it's, Lordy, space policy and law conversations going to like 1:30 in the morning with people from, 8 different countries around the world in every time zone that we have, they can be productive.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I definitely think that Clubhouse might have a role, depending on whether or not all of those types of things survive coming out of the pandemic. One of the things I am happy to see across our industry is hopefully, and I'm looking, giving some side eye to Space Symposium, Satellite, some of the other bigger conferences with very large price tags. And I know Space Symposium has said they're not doing a virtual anymore. And I'm like, then I wasn't going to go before because it's too expensive, and I'm not going to go now because there are better ways to do this than trying to get everyone in one giant ballroom in the middle of nowhere. So sorry, that was a rant. That was
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that's something we definitely need to keep in mind go forward for, future LDCs. I mean, I like the idea that it's virtual. I like the idea that anybody in the world can jump on and participate. Because, these physical conferences, they're really expensive. It's not just the price tag to get in, it's the travel too, and the lodging and everything else. And that's just really blocks a lot of people from joining our community. So yeah, I totally agree with that. With the Clubhouse thing, Michael, is that open to everybody? And if so, could you throw the link to that or something so people know when to get on and how?
Yeah, they released the Android version of it about a month ago. I'll drop the URL.
The one thing I don't like about Clubhouse is you're not allowed to record it. So
yeah, you sort of can. Some people do, as long as you tell people you're doing it and you're very clear in the description. But yeah, they frown on that. But a lot of people ignore it when they have a good reason to.
Right. I mean, and that's one of the conversations we should have is, what technology we're going to use to facilitate this. What's the best one? James is right. Being able to record our meetings, even if it's just, not just the virtual chapter meetings, but don't necessarily want to, record like Moon Society business meetings to get those public. But if we're having like, a cooking chapter meeting, those are great things to record, put on the YouTube and let people watch and decide if they want to join in. So yeah, let's.
I think the viewership numbers for our internal meetings, if we publish them, would be quite low.
Yeah, I don't think that would help our cause any.
No.
Let's see. Any last comments or questions from the audience? I do see one from Manny. One idea he's thought of is something any school kid can do: small-scale crop growth experiments to determine optimum crops to grow in an off-world colony. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yep, agriculture experiments are pretty easy to do. And we could definitely brainstorm a couple of just very simple experiments, put them up on the web and get people involved, and actually like collect real data and actually move everything a little bit forward. So yeah, we got all kinds of ideas for projects, but like I said yesterday, the bottleneck is people to implement. And we need all kinds of volunteers, but we really need our leaders, people that can pick up a project and run with it till completion. We get a lot of people that pick up projects and then disappear or put them down for whatever reason. And we really need to increase our bench strength on volunteers and leaders.
Yep. So this means if you're listening to us, if you want to join us at the Moon Society, it's $35 a year, and you can be a leader at the Moon Society.
Yep.
It's a great thing to put on your resume. It's a great opportunity for building new skills, and we'd love to have you. Yeah.
One of the things that came out of yesterday is I'm going to be contacting Melissa Roth to see if we can figure out a way to get a low-cost version of Lunar Simulant, and possibly put together some projects for K through 12 going, here is some simulated lunar regolith. How would you figure out the best way to be able to grow a particular crop in that kind of soil, as a way to start getting at least some data, but also in getting some engagement by, putting some actually simulated lunar soil in the hands of kids. So just some ways like that. Maybe not their top of the line product coming out from off planet research, because that stuff's quite expensive, but
Right.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're just talking, something that's got a similar chemical composition there, that's fairly easy. You get something that has agglutinates in it and stuff, that's hard to make.
Right.
So yeah. One of the things I thought that we could do is we should have like a teacher's aid section where we have experiments, we have flyers, we have lesson plans that they can just pull off the website and use in their class. I mean, I've known several teachers and they're pretty hungry for stuff like that.
Especially if it's set up to be specific to their testing and curricular requirements.
Yeah.
So if there's any educators out there that want to help us do that, please join us in Slack. Well, thank you, Michael and Ben. This was a nice discussion to kick us off today.
Thanks, guys.
I hope you guys enjoy the conference today.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm still reviewing the YouTube stuff from yesterday. So because yesterday is completely online, for those that couldn't make it yesterday, take a look on YouTube and you can watch the entire conference from yesterday.
Yep. Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks a lot.